Welcome to the Underground, the Steel City Underground, the black and gold standard for Pittsburgh Steelers coverage. Now, here are your hosts, Brian E. Roach and Christina Rivers.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Steel City Underground podcast. This edition should be called the Kuzma Free Zone because I am your host. I am the master of ceremonies. I, Brian E. Roach, perennial sidekick, am now running the show, at least for tonight and until Joe hears this and decides to, edit me out and put himself into the mix. But I'm not doing it alone. I have a special guest, a contributor at SCU, the wondrous, the beauteous, the far too intelligent to work at SCU, but she does anyway and writes some really great stuff, Christina Rivers. Tina, how you doing today?
I am doing much better, Brian. Thank you for having me on today. I've been begging Joe to get back on the podcast, and he keeps putting me off, and I think it's because he likes to sit there and torture you.
Well, that could be. He enjoys calling me Robin. Let's see. I tried to get him to let me be Elwood to his Jake, but he wouldn't do that. He wants me to be, Wayne's World. What's Wayne? Wayne and Garth. He wants me to be Garth, and I don't want to be Garth. But that's okay, because he's not here, and when the cat's away, the mice will play. So here's what we're going to try and cover. We actually aren't going to spend the entire time talking about the fact that Joe isn't here and all the things we're going to do while he's not here. We actually want to talk about some football. At least I think we do, don't we?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Excellent. So the first thing we want to talk about is, Tina, you wrote an article not that long ago on Steel City Underground. And what was that? What was that called?
Well, the headline was, Steelers need to bring back Polamalu spark at safety.
Steelers need to bring back Polamalu spark at safety. And how was this received by all of the people out there who took the time to peruse your efforts and to read the incredible in-depth information that you provided?
It wasn't received very well. I'm sorry. That just it kind of caught me off guard there for a second. But anyway, once people got to the word Polamalu, it was almost like an engine that vapor locks, because the comments that were left were in the range of, he's too old, he doesn't have a relationship with the Steelers anymore, and why would you ever bring Polamalu back?
Now,
was completely missing my point.
Exactly. Now, obviously, those of us who write stuff on the internet, we have let's just say we have a passing fascination with the headline reader who feels that they've gotten all the information required for whatever the article may be simply by reading the headline. And then they comment reacting specifically to that headline. So, of course, everyone thought when you said Polamalu spark, you actually meant, let's go find Troy, who may or may not be in any kind of football shape, probably has no interest in playing at this point, and say, come on back. But that's not what you meant, right?
Right, and I don't know if it's because right before I used his name, I said bring back. It's one of those psychological games that they play on social media. Your brain fills in the blanks. You can write the words backwards. You can write them in, the letters are in different order, but your brain still compensates. I think it just stalled your brain out with a bring back Polamalu. But I have to say, I love the fans who actually read the article because they saw what I meant. I mean, I went into a very detailed breakdown about the safety position and defensive backfield in general. And those who read it understood, and the majority of them agreed. Now, I don't write the articles just so that people agree with me. It's to generate thought, process, discussion. But there was little discussion since most of the people thought that I wanted to bring back Troy. Although I love Troy, he's not coming back.
No, he's not
Sorry
coming back.
Sorry to all the Yinzers.
You're
right. He's not coming back.
He was my man crush for many years, and it had nothing to do with the hair. But he's not coming back. Now, but the point of your article has to do with the fact that I think we all can agree that the Steelers secondary has some ongoing issues. And in specific, we saw last year an inordinate number of big plays in the passing game. And also in the running game where, secondary people were out of position. Secondary people weren't communicating effectively. And you don't have a real dynamic playmaker in the backfield anymore.
Yeah, I think during the 2017 season, we really saw that with the way that Keith Butler used a heavy rotation of the defensive backs. Granted, they were using rotations because they were using nickel and dime packages on several teams. But at the same time, when they struggled in run defense, a lot of people looked at, okay, it's the defensive line, the inside linebackers. How come they're not getting off the ball? How come they're not stopping the run? But a lot of people don't realize that the strong safety position is generally played by a player, and that player is judged on coverage skills, their ability to step up and run defense, their ability to make tackles and make plays, and especially on conversion plays like third downs, fourth downs, and in the red zone. And the Steelers didn't have that. I think a lot of the rotation was reactionary based on what the opposing offense offered to them. But at the same time, we had a very, very low turnover ratio, and we had very, very little outside pressure. And that was really what I was focusing on when I mentioned Troy Polamalu, is that he brought a certain level of aggressiveness and spirit and athleticism to the strong safety position that the Steelers have not had since he left. And we're talking the 2015-16 season, the 2016 season, and this last season.
Yeah, I mean, so just so everybody's aware, Sean Davis and Mike Mitchell are our primary safeties. And, I think backing them up, we have Robert Golden and...
Well, you had
Wilcox. So we had
Robert
Wilcox.
Golden.
Yeah, we had J.J. Wilcox as well.
And then you had Jordan Dangerfield.
Yep. No respect. No respect at all.
Yeah. And that was pretty much, that's pretty much it.
Yeah. And so, Sean Davis.
Well, yeah.
Oh, no, go ahead. Finish your thought.
No, I was going to name another name, but actually that person that I was thinking actually was not with the team. So.
Oh, well, then it's immaterial. It's a moot point. Or, as they say, it's like a cow's opinion. It's a moo point. It doesn't matter. And so, what I was pretty vocal about this most of the season between our two second-year defenders in the backfield, which is Sean Davis and Artie Burns, in feeling that I didn't think either one of them progressed heavily last year. Sean Davis had his moments, but he also had a lot of misses and a lot of mental errors, and Artie Burns was the same way. Now, I won't put it all on both of them because there's other issues, and obviously losing Ryan Shazier, who was really the guy who gets everybody in place, at some point that impacted them. But we were still having issues in run support and covering gaps, in tackling effectively, and in passing off guys through the zones effectively, and communicating that, you're releasing this receiver to whoever. We had problems with that even before Shazier went down. And that all speaks to issues in the secondary. And, when we look at where we're at right now, Sean Davis was in his second year as a rookie. He'll be going into his third year of his contract. He's not going to go anywhere. Mike Mitchell, on the other hand, is in the last year of his contract and is a big cap hit. and could conceivably be a cap casualty this year. So,
yeah, I agree, definitely, especially after his production in the 2017 season.
Yeah, now, when you look at Mitchell's kind of progression through the years that he's been with the Steelers, a lot of us were very excited about it when he was signed. We thought this could be a really good signing, kind of a Ryan Clark-ish type signing. But I don't really think that's the way Mitchell has produced with the Steelers. It feels, and I know he's gotten the ire of Steelers Nation at times, and they seem to have either a love-hate relationship with Mitchell. But how much, when you were writing that article, how much did you look at and see, is it Mitchell being out of position? Is it the cornerbacks making mistakes? Or is it a combination of all those things?
It's kind of a combination. Focusing just on Mitchell's play, after Polamalu left, the Steelers had Will Allen, and they moved him up into Polamalu's position. Now, the same season, Mitchell came out of OTAs and minicamp looking like he was going to be able to play sideline to sideline. The Steelers gave him a 5-year, $25 million free agent contract during the offseason. Part of the issue that Mitchell had was that just prior to training camp, he had a groin injury that forced him to spend 10 days on the PUP list, which is physically unable to perform. And then he returned for the preseason, but was unable to play at full speeds. But he was second on the Steelers' roster with 71 total tackles and 2 forced fumbles, but had 0 sacks or interceptions. The next season, he spent time moving around, sharing with Robert Golden and Sean Davis, but he was declining. Then in the 2017 season, Mitchell logged 35 combined tackles, no pass defenses, and no interceptions in 13 games with 12 starts. So that makes that 5-year extension look like a stinker deal.
Yeah, he has kind of underwhelmed. And, between what I think people think is excessive celebration over simple hits or tackles, especially when they ended up resulting in first downs, to just what looked like at times Keystone Cops in the secondary last year, it's highly likely that the Steelers are going to target the safety position, maybe in free agency, probably certainly in the draft, because it, like inside linebacker, is a position where I think that they need more than one guy. As we talked about, our depth at the safety position is not strong. And when you look at the people who are potential cap casualties this season, Mitchell's one, Wilcox is one, Robert Golden is potentially one. That leaves us essentially with Sean Davis and Jordan Dangerfield, and that's not a very comfortable position to be in.
No, absolutely not. That cannot make the defensive backs, coaches, that can't make Keith Butler very secure. Now, as far as Sean Davis, a lot of players go through what they call a sophomore slump.
Yep.
Davis got thrust in as a rookie. He really got thrust into the situation of moving into a starting position because his teammates at safety were underwhelming. And his performance during his rookie season, so that'd be 2016, was reminiscent of the type of production that Polamalu gave. Davis had 1.5 sacks, which mirrored Polamalu's average over his career, and really looked like he was going to be able to give them an upgrade at the position.
Yeah, I think
then
that's true. I think that's true.
It wasn't so much of an upgrade, and we all witnessed it. The fact that Mitchell was moved back to the starting spot, and then the rotation of the personnel and the unit struggling for consistency. Davis's best performance was during Week 14 against the Ravens, when he recorded, it was a season high 12 combined tackles and an interception. So his numbers are still good, But I think what we're seeing is a translation kind of similar to what you were saying. Times it looked like Keystone Cops. You weren't sure if they were communicating with each other or not, and defenses were taking the top off the corners, and there was no safety help. And that's just something that you can't afford when you're playing top caliber offensive teams.
Yeah, and there was more than one occasion where you assumed either that really I hate to pick on Mike Mitchell, but it feels like that's the guy that you saw more often than not. And as free safety, he's supposed to be playing center field more than Sean Davis is. But the ball is a throw up, it's going down the field, and Mitchell's supposed to try and make that catch. And there are times when it felt like he went for the hit rather than the ball. There's times where he went for the ball rather than the hit, and he just wasn't. He just didn't look like he was the player he was earlier in his career. Now, whether that's an issue with the consistent leg injuries he's suffered. I mean, he's had groin injury after groin injury, it seems like, and a variety of different issues that could slow a guy down. There's no question about it. But so the Steelers are going to have to look to shore up the safety position, and I think the ultimate point of your article is that what they really need is somebody to provide the kind. They don't have to be at Troy's level, because realistically, you're talking about a potential first ballot Hall of Famer who is going to be at Troy's level. Probably not anybody. But we need somebody who can play that position and provide some kind of dynamic playmaking ability, much more so than we saw last year from any of the guys.
Points was that there's no way you can't find a Polamalu. He is a rare specimen. He was just freakishly active, covering the field they moved him all over the place. Finding somebody that can fit into that mold, I just don't think that's even possible. And they don't need a clone of him. They need someone that has a similar no-quit attitude, that they can trust to cover the receivers, make the tackles, not just, throw their body or their arms at a rusher or a receiver. Someone who stays around the ball and is versatile enough to cover the slot and tight ends while being able to protect the deep field. I mean, those are all key things. And I've talked to Joe a little bit, not on a podcast, obviously, but we've talked a little bit about the safety position, especially the strong safety position, is kind of turned into a hybrid position where they're being asked to do way more than cover just in the backfield. I really like Mike Mitchell because he shows a lot of energy, but it's emotional energy and intensity. It doesn't always translate into physical aggressiveness. I mean, we know he can hit. We've seen him hit people.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And we know other players have complained about how hard he hits. But at the same time, if all you're doing is acting as an enforcer, kind of like a hockey enforcer, the guy that goes out and hip checks everybody, then you're going to get burned. And whether or not the Steelers want to take a chance with that or not, I don't know. But they definitely just need to find this upcoming season. They need to find somebody that fills that role and meets their needs a little. It's a tough spot. I mean, I don't know how to say it. They need somebody that's more consistent, that they can trust. And I think Ben talked about trust on the offensive side of the ball. You have to have trust on the defensive side of the ball too.
Yeah, you got to know that the guy that you are working with in the backfield is going to have your back. They're going to pick up on your cues. They're going to, you got to trust that they're going to be in the position that they need to be in order for you to just do your job. They say this all the time. All they have to do is their jobs, and if they do their jobs, if everybody does the job that's assigned to them, then they would be good. The problem is when you don't trust that the guy you're working with is going to fulfill his obligations, and you start to try and do too much, that's when problems occur. And that's how the backfield, the defensive backfield felt last season, that guys weren't certain that the other guys were going to be where they should be and do what they needed to do. So it's definitely an area of need. Maybe it'll get addressed in the draft. And look, I'm certainly not giving up on Shen Davis. He showed the kind of potential of what he could be in year one. As you said, second-year players sometimes have a slump. The third year, this is going to be an important year for both him and Artie Burns. This is the year that's going to determine a lot of things for them. If they're the players that we thought they were going to be, this is the year where they expect really heavy growth. They expect them to start to get it at a much higher level than in previous seasons. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. There are some potential free agents in safety, and especially at free safety, that could pique the Steelers. But with Le'Veon Bell's situation, with their own cap situation, there's no telling that they're going to be able to get into any heavy bidding wars for any of the free safeties that are out there if they're going to take and start a bidding war. The Steelers are not going to get involved in that. So if anything, I assume that they'll start to look at a mid-level kind of guy to bring in as a veteran leadership. But I think it is highly likely that Mike Mitchell, unless he's willing to take a rather drastic pay cut, I don't think he's here next year.
Well, we're looking at Mike Mitchell, J.J. Wilcox, and Robert Golden. And looking at those three guys, any one of them has the potential to be gone in 2018 season. But and if you look at their combined numbers, Sean Davis was outperforming those three guys. So it's easy to point fingers and say, hey, your production was down, and Wilcox came in to help us out, but is he a long-term solution? We're not sure. So do we spend the money to take the risk, or don't we? I anticipate that after the draft, the Steelers will even bring in more safeties that are undrafted free agents just to fill camp and to get a look at people. I don't know. What do you think about that?
I think it probably is likely. I mean, they'll bring in, I won't be surprised, and I've said this to several people, I won't be surprised if they double dip at the safety position in the draft and double dip at the inside linebacker position in the draft, because they're the two biggest areas of need that the team has. All that would change if Le'Veon Bell flies the coop and they don't work a deal with him. But assuming that does work out in some way, and Bell is on board for next season, then I would expect them to go heavy on the defense in the draft, and afterwards it absolutely makes sense. I think that they will look at free agency to try and find a veteran safety of some kind. I think that they will certainly bring in some extra bodies for camp, and I think that they'll draft use at least one, if not two, picks on safeties within this draft. It's just the two positions that they need an extreme upgrade in are the safety position and the inside linebacker position. They just don't have the depth they need there, and they don't have the players that they need there right now. Now, let me segue from that into players and talk about TSC, Total Sports Entertainment, who is one of our partners here at Steel City Underground. They have a signing that's going to occur in White Plains, New York, but on their site, tscshop.com, if you want to go and try and get or pre-order some memorabilia, mini helmets, jerseys, whatnot, that are signed, Donnie Shell, James Conner, Juju Smith-Schuster, Mike Hilton, and Mike Wagner are all going to be at this signing in White Plains, New York. And you can go on their site right now, pre-order a variety of different things. So if you're into Steelers memorabilia, we don't know anybody like that, do we, Tina?
says the mini helmet king.
I don't know what you're
Brian
talking about.
Roach.
I don't know what you're talking about. I have no mini helmets in my house. And
that's a hot list of potential autographs right there.
Absolutely, it is. I mean, Donnie Shell should be in the Hall of Fame, and James Conner coming back off injury for next year. Juju being Juju, come on, lighting the world on fire. And Mike Hilton, really kind of stole the show at a variety of times too. And Mike Wagner's another. Speaking of safeties, that's a safety we could use nowadays. So if you get a chance, jump over to tscshop.com and take a look and at what they've got going on over there. They've been a friend to the podcast, and we will be a friend to them, and they will have a huge array of signings throughout the year as we progress on. Now, there is another topic that I feel like we need to touch on because it's a hot topic. It's a hot take, as the kids say. You and me, we're just into that kid lingo. We know all those millennial phrases. And so this is a hot take.
What is it? I call him Little Zach. He's not really little. He's like my little brother. We have 2 Zachs on the team, but
yeah, and Big
Zach.
Big Zach is actually younger than Little Zach. But
yeah,
not that you can tell. So yeah, that would be Mr. Zachadonia, Celedonia. Yeah, he's the king of the millennial phrase. He and Eric.
His favorite phrase, lit.
Yeah, it's lit. So
lit.
This hot take is lit. There was some rumor mill stuff going on about Martavis Bryant. But the potential or the assumption that there had been possible trade talks between the Steelers and the Dolphins for Devontae Parker and Martavis Bryant, and whether or not that would move forward. And this is my take on this. Martavis is under contract for 2018. That's it, though. That's the end of his rookie deal. We got him an extra year because of the suspension. And from that standpoint, this is a huge, huge year for Martavis Bryant. Martavis Bryant is going to try and translate whatever he can do this year into getting paid. And I would be willing to bet that payday's not coming in Pittsburgh. With the structures that they have and the situations that they have with the emerging star and Juju Smith-Schuster, they're not going to have the flexibility to spend big money on Martavis Bryant. So even if they didn't trade him away, this is probably his last year in black and gold. Now, that being said, the Steelers desperately need draft picks. They're light this year, and it would be nice in a draft that is heavy on linebackers and has a decent amount of depth at safety for them to have some extra picks. So if you could trade Martavis Bryant for Devontae Parker and say a 3rd-round pick, would you do that? I know you would. Because
I don't. I'm not sold on Parker.
Oh, neither am I.
Even though I've been criticized for my objectivity or lack thereof towards Martavis Bryant. There's 4 things about Bryant that I think are biggies. The first being no more drama. To stay with the team, he's got to avoid drama into the locker room and onto the team. The second thing is that he needs to be reliable and consistent at the wide receiver position in order to give Ben Roethlisberger the trust that he needs to throw it to him. The third thing is when the ball's thrown to him, he needs to catch it and make a play.
Yeah.
But probably the most important thing mixed with those is that Bryant is cheap. And I'm not saying he's a cheap person, but as far as cap hit, they have Bryant already. It may be more beneficial for them even to take just that extra chance. They've got him. He's going to be inexpensive. If they bring somebody in to replace him, how much is that going to cost him? You can get into that whole whirlwind cyclone of what ifs.
You can. Absolutely.
Yeah. And as I'm not a general looking at it from the outside in. He's a risk. Yeah, but at the same time, I think towards the end of the season, he kind of cleaned some of that stuff up that he may have a very productive 2018 season. So whether or not I don't know. The reason it's a hot topic is because there's so many intangibles to the whole deal.
Yeah, I mean, I'm the flip side of you. I'm a guy who has had consistent faith in Martavis being able to come back I have made pleas to this extent of I understand, the drama that occurred last year with him, with a guy who spent his year on suspension through his own fault. No question about it. This is his bed is of his making. But you can sort of understand a guy who has really worked hard to try and get back and thinks that things are going to come to him and they just don't that quickly. As you said, he kind of cleaned things up as the year went on. The drama stopped. He started making big plays again. He started being able to make some catches and be involved in the offense. And I would expect that to continue. So I'm definitely a pro Martavis guy. But all that being said, I think at the way the Steelers are lined up right now, Devontae Parker is a slot guy. I mean, he's going to be a slot receiver. He's a big, tall, Jericho Cotchery-like slot receiver. But that's where he's going to be able to fit in. He makes better combat catches than Martavis does. He's a stronger receiver. But he also comes with a $3.5 million cap hit that I don't think the Steelers can afford to absorb right now. So if a team wanted to trade for Martavis Bryant, I would listen. But it would really require more than maybe another receiver, because I think that, again, wide receivers are always deep in the draft. They're deep again this year. I think if they can get a pick or two and a player of some kind, like there's a linebacker. The Jets have a linebacker. He's an Ohio State player, Lee, I think, he was a first-round pick a couple years ago and has fallen out of favor. Well, if the Jets wanted to train me an inside linebacker and maybe a second or a third-round pick for Martavis Bryant, I would be shipping him off to New York in a minute because, as much as I support him, as much as I like him as a player, he is one failed drug test away from a lifetime suspension, or a indefinite suspension. So there's, as you said, there's definite risk there. The right deal, I think it makes sense for them to move on him because in my opinion, they're going to lose him after next year anyway. And if they can improve the team right now and get something for Martavis before he walks out the door and they just get, some kind of a compensatory, and I can't say it, stupid comp pick.
Compensatory?
English is hard.
Compensatory. There you go.
Yeah, compensatory pick. Oh, I said it. Ooh, I'm all fancy now. Then, I think they're on the plus side of that deal. So, it's interesting because I hadn't thought about it. To be honest, I didn't know what his market value was going to be, but there are receiver-starved teams. The Jets need a playmaker. The Dolphins need a playmaker. The Colts, the Redskins, all these teams, they need that deep threat. And Martavis is, no matter what else he is that deep threat. He will, get those guys to have to think about a potential deep ball. So we'll see whether that is nothing but fluff, which, to be honest, I kind of think it probably is. But you never know. You never know. It's the draft. It's draft season. It's speculation season, and we'll see how it goes. So, Tina, I want to thank you for joining us. It was informative and exciting as always. So just remind everybody how they can follow you out in the Twitterverse and the interwebs.
Well, on the interwebs and the Twitterverse is definitely the best option. My Twitter handle is @3Rivers, RIVERS _writer. So @3RiversWriter. And thank you to the Steelers for naming their first, well, not their first, but naming their stadium 3 Rivers, because it gave me a perfect Twitter handle.
There you go. It's beautiful. It's much better than my Cannons Don't Thun By the way, if you wanted to follow me, you can follow me at Cannons Don't Thun, which, as I explained the other day on a podcast I was guesting on, was because of a quote from a Jimmy Buffett song, "The cannons don't thunder, there's nothing to plunder." But "Cannons Don't Thunder" doesn't fit, so it became "Cannons Don't Thun," which makes no sense at all. But that's going to wrap it up.
Unless you're a pirate.
Yeah, unless you're a pirate, but even then, thun, I don't know. So, anyway, that's going to wrap it up for this edition of the Steel City Underground. I am Brian Roach. She is Tina Rivers. As always, it's chaos out there. Be kind.
We would like to thank you for listening and remind our listeners to follow us on social media and our website, www.steelcityunderground.com.